This is Joyce Tice at the History Center on Main Street. It's April 2018, and we're going to talk to Scott Johnson of Mansfield about his family's business, Johnson Trucking, that his grandfather started. When did your grandfather start this business?
My great-grandfather.
Great-grandfather, thank you.
In 1934.
Okay, and his name was?
Charles Lee Johnson.
Okay.
And it was called C.L. Johnson and Son at that point.
Okay.
When he first started.
And his son was Stuart?
My son was Stuart, my grandfather.
Okay.
Yeah.
And you have a picture here of Charles and his wife, Ida Marvin.
Yeah, that's a picture of him.
Okay, that's a really nice picture. Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Now, you also have a picture of one of, when he first started, it wasn't about milk trucking.
No.
It was something else.
Yeah, he used to, when he first started, they built roads around the Mansfield area.
Okay.
And this is a couple of his trucks and an old shovel.
Wow.
That they used to build.
That's beautiful. So those are 1930s vintage trucks in that picture.
Yeah, yep, pretty old.
Beautiful.
Yeah.
So then at that point it was C.L. Johnson.
Mm-hmm.
Eventually it focused on milk trucking.
Yes, yeah.
Okay, well this kind of came to my attention because I was working, as I told you, with the 1940 census and realized what a major employer milk trucking was.
Right.
I mean, Dairymen's League that processed milk and Johnson's that trucked it really were major here. This was a town about milk.
Yeah. Yeah, they hauled a lot of milk during the war. In 1939, it went from C.L. Johnson and Son to Johnson Truck Line.
Okay.
That's when the official name Johnson Truck Line started. So during the war, actually, they hauled milk from Maine to Florida. Really? For years.
Wasn't just local?
No, it wasn't local. They hauled a lot to New York City, Baltimore, Philly, and they hauled milk for the government to all the military bases, the big bases up and down the coast.
Do you have any idea about what the maximum employment was?
At the height of its employment was right around 150 people during the war. Yeah, and actually during the war, it was hard to buy trucks and milk tanks, you know, so the government allotted them so much steel and aluminum and stainless steel, they built some of their own tanks right uptown here to haul. Wow. Because they couldn't buy them out because of the war. So they built them by hand right up here uptown where the bank sits.
Okay. Yeah, it was a big concrete or cinder block building.
Cinder block, yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
Actually, I've got pictures of that being torn down.
Oh,
like
yeah?
Jim Ripple, yeah. Yeah. What goes up must come down.
I have pictures of it up.
Yeah, great, great. And is that where they actually built these trucks?
Yeah. They built the tankers in the back, the alley Horde Street behind it there.
Right.
Right in the back of the shop, they had a whole mechanic shop, paint and body shop too.
Wow.
So,
wow.
Yeah, they had brand new motors in their crates, and when a truck needed a new motor, they changed them out right there and did everything they had to do right there in town.
Oh, well, you've got some more pictures here that help tell the story. Okay. So why don't you show these in the order that you like, because they all are part of this. Now, when did it close, first of all?
Johnson Truck Line itself?
Yeah.
It closed in 2007.
Wow.
Yeah. So it was roughly in business 75 years. Right in.
I wasn't aware that it was still functioning that late.
Yeah. Yep, 2007 was the last of it.
And was it still in the family then?
Yeah, my brother Stacy had it at that time.
Okay. I did not know that.
Yeah.
Excellent. Okay, so let's look at, I think you told me that you have a lot more pictures, but what you were focusing on was the 40s here, or 30s and 40s.
30s and 40s, yeah.
Okay.
This is a picture of Charles taken in front of one of his trucks.
Oh, nice. Yeah. Beautiful.
Years ago.
Now, your grandfather, Stuart also was part of it.
Yes.
And he died in a tragic accident.
A plane crash in 1949, March 16th, yeah.
He was 40 years old?
He was 40 years old, and he was going to see a friend up in Ontario, Canada, and him and a business associate of his from Elmira had flown to Buffalo, and then they were on their way to Ontario. and they ran into a snow squall around Watertown, New York, where they were supposed to land. People up there say they heard a plane circling for
Show the picture.
hours. This was actually taken in Buffalo the morning they left to go to Ontario.
So they got in the plane and went up and crashed right
Yeah.
from that picture.
Yep, about 4 hours later after this picture.
And that is your grandfather on the left in
Yes,
that picture.
Stuart.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, that was a big blow to the business and to
Yeah.
the family, of course.
Yeah, my dad was 19 when it happened, and him and my uncle Marv kind of took over the running of the business, and my grandmother. So they ran it through the 50s until they moved out of town and went down and built a truck haven.
Okay.
So,
And that was north of here?
north of, about 2 miles north. In 1960 they built that.
Okay, up Route 15?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right, well, let's look at some more of these pictures
Okay.
and hear the stories.
Well, I have an old picture of one of our trucks sitting in front of the old garage downtown. That was taken
Oh.
during the 40s.
That's beautiful. Wow.
It's one of the old milk trucks.
Sure.
And the story goes on one Friday night they used to have drivers meetings, and this is a picture of the drivers after the meeting.
What, there's
And
30 people there?
Yeah, easily, yeah.
Wow.
So and that was just the drivers, not any of the garage employees.
Right, or administrative or
Right.
support.
Right.
Wow.
So that's how they used to dress up back in the day.
I know. Even to go to the grocery store or the movies,
Yeah.
you put a suit on.
Yeah. This is another, just a small picture of one of the trucks in front of the old garage.
Okay, and then there's the old King Rose building right down here at the end.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah, nice.
This is a picture of some of the trucks down in front of the old condensery by the cemetery.
Okay, the Dairyman's League. Back
Right.
that up a little. Just, there we go. Okay, beautiful picture. All lined up, looking nice.
Yeah,
Posing for their picture.
yeah.
You've,
This is kind of on the back side of the picture.
okay, with their logo there.
Yeah,
So there's a really close association between Dairyman's League and Johnson's Trucking.
yes, yeah.
Because that initially started out with W.D. Rose, who built the condensery
Right,
with
uh-huh.
Mansfield Dairy, and then became Dairyman's League, which was a cooperative all over the Northeast.
Right.
The brand name Dairy Lee, you know,
Yeah.
we remember that. I don't think it's still used, but
Yeah, probably not.
right. But okay,
This is a picture of my uncle and grandmother, and Dorothy Whitney was the administrator or secretary, and she was with the company over 30 years.
wow.
She started working at the college, and my grandfather went up and got her to work for him.
Stole her.
So brought her down, and she was a valued employee for a lot of years. Good lady. Very good lady.
Is that all?
Yeah, pretty much. I have a
Oh yeah, here's
couple of these little ones.
one of those actually has a date on it. 1952.
This is another one in front of the old garage downtown.
Well, they keep changing. You got a whole history of truck styles here.
Oh yeah. And this is actually down in front of where Walmart sits now. And this is back in the 30s.
Okay, tell us a little bit about that.
Just a picture of some of the employees that were drivers at the time. And they had a little golf station down there. And they sold fuel, and that's where they parked their trucks. And it was before the garage was built down there.
Okay, and it's you said if you're driving into Walmart
It's on the
line
right-hand
now,
side.
right there on the right where the grass is now.
Yeah, yeah. And there's still
At Canoe Camp.
Canoe camp. That's right where that was. So.
Okay. Well, now what else would you like to tell us about this business? 75 years is a long time for any business when
Yeah.
the average business lasts 10 years.
Yeah, that's true. Well, I think my great grandfather starting it was a very shrewd businessman, a good businessman, and Stuart, my grandfather, went into it, and they ran it, together. and formed Johnson Truck Line. And then, unfortunately, when my grandfather was killed, my dad took over, and his uncle or his brothers, and he was only 19 when he took over.
So run a company. Well, of course, he had his grandmother to help.
Yeah. But he was, he had to take drivers out on test drives and that were twice his age.
I bet they liked that.
He said that was kind of intimidating in the day. But,
probably for both of them.
Yeah. So, he matured and stayed with it for years, and they had the truck stop down north of town, and then after that shut down, he built the trucking back up again. And in '73, that's when I went to work with him too.
Okay.
And I worked from '73 to '84, working on trucks and driving trucks with him. And then I left in '84, and my dad passed away in '92.
Okay.
And my two brothers took it over, Steve and my younger brother Stacy. And Steve was killed in '97, and then Stacy took it over from there. And he ran it till 2007.
Wow.
And then it closed down.
Probably his retirement, wanted to retire by then, or?
Well, I think after deregulation, trucking got a lot more competitive. And the profitability really was getting very slim. And he felt it was enough to, just shut it down at that time. Just really wasn't making enough money.
Well, it's an important business, and it's a wonderful legacy for your family that this has become such an integral part of Mansfield's history. And with so many families, we see this when we're working with the genealogy, how many of these obituaries record that people worked for Johnson's Trucking and so on. And I told you a few minutes ago about Ted Vasansany, whom we remember. When he was in college, he paid his bills by driving for Johnson's Trucking, and he told me he went to New York City and so on. He'd be driving all night and come back and go to classes at the college, and he told me how he fell asleep in one class and ended up with his head on the shoulder of the redheaded girl next to him, which he didn't seem to be too bothered by that.
Right, I'm sure. But actually, Bob Strohecker's father, Bill, worked for my dad back in the '60s.
Okay.
And he worked at nights at the truck stop and went to college during the days.
Bill did. His father.
Yeah.
That long ago.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah. So he was a great employee for a lot of years. Yeah. Good person.
Well, thank you, Scott.
Sure.
Really appreciate hearing about this, and I know other people are going to too, and we're delighted to see these wonderful pictures.
Well, thank you for asking me to come in and talk about it, and I'll bring in more pictures. I've got a bunch. So
good. We're going to look forward to seeing them.
Great.
Thank you very much.
You're welcome.